You know, it's kind of crazy how much childhood has changed, even just in the last, like, what, 20 years?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, think about it. Like, when we were kids, do we even have cell phones?
No way. Not until like high school, maybe. And even then, it was those like clunky ones, right?
Totally. And now kids have, like, mini computers in their pockets,
Yeah.
practically from the time they can, like, walk and talk.
It's wild, right?
So we're diving into the anxious generation today.
Oh, interesting.
All about this mental health thing that's going on with young people, all the anxiety and depression.
Right. It's a big topic.
And it's not just about blaming technology or anything. It's like way more complex than that.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's really cool about this book, The Anxious Generation, is that it like dives into all these different factors.
I'm curious to hear about it.
Yeah. So right away, they talk about technology, obviously.
Makes sense.
It's like impossible to ignore the fact that kids are growing up totally surrounded by these digital devices, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the book goes way deeper than just saying screen time is bad. Like, it's not that simple.
Right.
So what's really interesting is they get into like the actual neuroscience of it all.
Okay.
They're saying that all this like constant digital stimulation actually changes how kids' brains develop.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's all this research they cite about how excessive screen time is linked to like less gray matter in certain parts of the brain.
And those are the parts that are responsible for like controlling impulses and regulating emotions, right?
Exactly. So it's not just about like the content they're seeing, it's like the actual wiring of their brains is being affected.
And, when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, all those notifications, the constant fear of missing out, it's like
I know.
this constant state of hypervigilance, almost like a low-grade fight or flight response that never really turns off.
Oh my gosh, totally.
Mm.
And I feel it even as an adult, like when I'm away from my phone for too long, I get this like twitchy feeling.
Right. It's like we're all kind of addicted to that dopamine hit.
It's true. But the book doesn't just stop at technology.
Oh, there's more.
It also like dives into how even well-intentioned parenting can kind of backfire.
Oh, that's interesting. What do you mean?
So they talk about this thing called the overprotection paradox.
Overprotection paradox.
Yeah, it's basically that instinct we all have, like as parents or caregivers, to protect our kids from anything, anything unpleasant.
Right.
Like we don't want them to like ever feel uncomfortable or experience failure.
Totally. I can see that.
So we're constantly like hovering, intervening, making sure everything is perfect.
But the book is saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah, they're saying that by doing all that, we actually prevent kids from learning how to deal with stress and setbacks on their own.
Oh, I see. It's like they never get a chance to develop those coping skills.
Exactly. It's like that saying, falling down is part of learning to walk. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You got to fall a few times to figure out how to stay upright.
Exactly. And the book gives this like crazy example of this kid who like never learned how to ride a bike.
Oh, no. Why not?
Because his parents were so terrified of him getting hurt, they just wouldn't let him try.
Wow.
Might sound extreme, but think about it. We all probably do that in smaller ways without even realizing it.
That's a good point. Like, are we really letting kids make mistakes and learn from them?
Right. Okay, so we've got technology rewiring brains, overprotective parents, and then there's another thing.
Okay, lay it on me. What else?
Remember, like, when we were kids, we could just run around and, like, make up our own games.
Oh, yeah, totally. We were outside all the time.
But nowadays, it seems like that kind of unstructured play is, like, disappearing.
That's sad.
Right.
Yeah.
And the book talks about how important that kind of play is for kids.
Oh, I bet. I mean, you learn so much just from playing with other kids.
Exactly. They're saying it's crucial for, like, problem solving and creativity and, like, learning to control your emotions.
And empathy, too, right? Like, you have to understand other people's perspectives and learn to cooperate.
Oh, totally. It's like a whole, like, social emotional boot camp.
It's like real-life training for how to navigate the world.
Exactly. But it's just not happening as much anymore.
So what can we do about that? Like, how do we bring back free play?
Well, that's a big question. And the book talks about that, too. But first, there's like one more piece of the puzzle we got to talk about.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's the whole pressure cooker culture we live in.
Yeah, it's intense.
Like, it feels like kids today have this insane amount of pressure on them.
In so many ways, right? Like academically, socially.
Totally. They're supposed to have perfect grades, and they're supposed to be like social media stars.
And they're supposed to like know what they want to do with their lives by the time they're 16.
Right. It's like, no wonder they're so stressed out and anxious.
And the book connects all of this to the rise in mental health issues, right?
Exactly. They're saying that this whole culture of like achievement and perfectionism can really mess with kids' self-esteem.
Absolutely. Like when you're constantly being bombarded with messages about how you should be better, smarter, more successful.
It's got to be tough.
It is. And then you add social media into the mix where everyone's presenting these perfect, curated versions of themselves.
Ugh, it's a recipe for disaster.
It really is.
You know, there's a whole section in the book about the college admissions process.
Oh gosh, don't even get me started.
I know. It's like this crazy competition now. Kids are feeling pressure to get perfect grades and do all these extracurriculars and score perfectly on the SATs.
And it's like, what happened to just enjoying learning and exploring different interests?
Right. It's all about like getting into the right college, whatever that means.
Right. Like there's only one path to success.
It's insane.
So what does the book say we can do about all of this? It sounds pretty bleak.
Well, they talk a lot about this idea of like rethinking childhood.
Rethinking childhood.
Yeah. But it's not about like going back to the Stone Age or banning all technology.
Okay, good.
It's more about finding a balance.
Yeah,
you know?
like finding that sweet spot.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So they talk about encouraging more free play
makes sense.
and like being more mindful of how much we use technology.
Yeah, setting good examples for our kids.
Totally. But maybe the most important thing is like helping kids develop resilience.
Resilience, yeah.
And that means letting them struggle sometimes, you know.
Letting them fail and figure things out on their own.
Exactly.
Right.
Because that's how they learn and grow.
It's like building those mental muscles, right?
Totally. But it's not just about what we do as like parents or teachers, right?
Right.
Like we have to look at the whole system too.
Oh, you mean like the education system, societal expectations, all that?
Exactly. Like maybe we need to rethink standardized testing
Oh, yeah, good point.
or like challenge this idea that there's only one right way to be successful.
Totally. Like there are so many different paths to a fulfilling life.
Exactly. But, you know, even beyond all that, like the big systems, we can all do things on a personal level too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What do you mean?
Well, we can all like try to be more aware of our own anxieties.
Right. Like, are we projecting our own fears onto our kids?
Exactly. Are we modeling healthy ways to deal with stress?
Those are good questions to ask ourselves.
Yeah, because if anxiety is something you can learn, like the book says,
Right.
then maybe we can also learn how to be less anxious.
And maybe create a world where childhood is less about pressure and more about, like, exploration and connection and resilience.
Exactly. That's what I keep coming back to.
Yeah, that's a powerful thought.
So I guess the big question is like, can we really do that? Can we actually create a less anxious world for kids?
It's definitely a challenge. But, you know, even just asking that question is a good first step.
Yeah, totally. And I think anyone listening, whether you're a parent or a teacher or just, you know, a concerned human,
Right.
you can play a role in making that happen.
Absolutely. And as you continue to think about all of this, remember to be critical of the information you're taking in.
Yeah, don't just blindly accept everything you read or hear.
Right. Think about what resonates with you, what challenges your assumptions.
And most importantly, think about what you can actually do, you know, in your own life and in your community.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's about taking action.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some things to think about.
Yeah. And maybe even inspired you to make some changes.
Because even small changes can make a big difference, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. But we'll be back next time with another deep dive into something, you know, interesting and thought-provoking.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, keep those brains buzzing.
And take care of yourselves.
See ya.
Bye.